Welcome to the Axe Social Podcast. Today's special sponsors are Chick-fil-A, Hobby Lobby, and Grand Canyon University. Thank you so much to our generous sponsors. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to the Axe Social Podcast. Today we are here with the founder of United Hive, Mr. Gabriel Jackson. Gabriel, thank you so much for being on this podcast today. We're so excited to have you and to talk about what you're doing for the kingdom with United Hive.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. We were joking beforehand that Gabriel has the perfect radio voice. He just kind of sultry, smooth, wants you to read him. I want him to read me a bedtime story kind of voice. So this is going to be a fun episode. But Gabe, let's start from the beginning. How did United Hive come to be? What's the story behind it? I know you've been going for, I think, 6 years. That's quite some time, and people might not have heard about this app. So tell us the story behind it. How did you come to creating this app, and what's that journey been like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting because I was working full-time in the business world, and I had no plans of starting a ministry. I certainly had no plans of starting any sort of app, or I'm not even particularly techie. I don't consider myself, I'm kind of a poser. You know what I mean? But the Lord, I think, just loves to use the unlikely, and it's beautiful. I love that about God, and we see that all throughout Scripture. But for me and United Hive, this actually came as a vision in early 2017, and I think when we spoke the other day, I was sharing some about this. But I was just getting ready for work one morning. I was in prayer, I was putting on the suit, and just as I prayed, I had the clearest image kind of popped in front of my face. I knew immediately the Lord was speaking, the Lord was showing me something. And what I saw was this map where there was activity popping up all over the map, and it was spreading rapidly. And when I saw this, first of all, I knew immediately that God was speaking. So at first I was like, whoa, that doesn't happen every day, especially not like this in the form of a vision. And so when I asked the Lord, I just said, Lord, what are you showing me? And the one word I heard was testimonies. Testimonies. And when I heard that word, it was like something was planted so deep inside of my heart. And the question that emerged was, if we could capture everything that God was doing around the planet through everyday believers, what would happen to the faith level in the body of Christ? And if you're like me, I grew up in a Christian home, and my dad was actually he was a pastor, so I grew up kind of in the church, but I didn't hear and see a lot of stories of transformation. I didn't hear a lot of people or see it as common for people to be sharing the gospel in their everyday life. I didn't hear stories of people getting healed on the streets. That wasn't normal. And so for me, when I had this vision and God spoke through it, I think for years God had been stirring my heart to be prepared to say yes to this, because I believe it's so important that the body of Christ see and experience that Jesus is alive and that he's moving today, and that he wants us as his bride to say yes to that grand adventure, to be a part of that. You live in Arizona. I'm up here in Portland, Oregon area. And, we each have people in our life that we can reach and we can talk to and we can share the gospel with. And so I think it's the move of God that we want to see on this planet. I believe this next big one that we're praying for and believing for is really going to come because of the everyday believer saying yes to this mission and capturing the heart of God for the lost in their city. So high level, we've stepped into that. That's what the United Hive app is about, sharing testimonies, documenting what God is doing in your daily life. And, we have this phrase, faith is contagious. So that's the essence of this, that, your faith, your acts of obedience can be someone else's breakthrough, can inspire someone else to step out and start going after it in their city, however God directs them.
I love that. And I think one of the things I saw on your website, and we maybe even talked about this too, you felt like the Holy Spirit was telling you like there's kind of a dormant hive right now, where I think in today's culture, people are maybe afraid to share their faith, or they don't want to step out and share their testimony. How has that come across in your app? Have you found that people are more willing to share online with people that they don't know than they are maybe in person with people in their community?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think that we've run up against some interesting mental barriers for people. And and so I wouldn't necessarily say that people are more comfortable, but I would say that by creating an app and be creating a community where it's normalized, I do think people get more and more comfortable feeling like they can share, where they don't feel like they are bragging. And that's one of the, I think, mental barriers that we're having to break through with a lot of Christians, because it comes from a few scriptures, I think, where people feel like, you know, man, God's doing all this powerful stuff through my life. And if they lead someone to the Lord, or they pray for someone and someone gets kind of radically healed, they're like, well, I don't know if I want to share that, because what are my friends and family going to think? Or are they going to think that I'm bragging? Or am I doing this for the praise of men? Right?
Mm,
So we do encounter, I think, some hesitancy in some of this. And I actually had to really, in my own heart, I had to address this with the Lord immediately, because I realized I was feeling similar things. And as the founder of this tool, I felt a certain amount of pressure, kind of like, oh, I need to use it. I need to actually, well, to have a testimony to share, I need to actually step out
yeah.
and pray for people and share Jesus. And so I felt a little bit of that pressure myself. And I settled, this is where I settled it with the Lord, is for me, it became very simple that if my testimony of stepping out could inspire one other person to go do likewise, then I was determined that I was going to get past my own fear, or my own, in some cases, fear of man. I'm going to get past that to share, because the Bible, we love to talk about verses about not letting your left hand know what your right hand's doing, even though that's in reference to giving and things like that. But Jesus is talking about the Pharisees that are making a big show of things, standing on the street corner, praying extra loud, praying extra long to be seen by men. And so this is sort of the backdrop. But then just a little bit later in Matthew, we see Jesus saying, let your light shine before all men, that they would see your good deeds and praise your Father who is in heaven. So there's this dichotomy. So what I came to, Chance, was that I can't control what people think about me, and I need to continue to step out, and I'm going to continue to share those stories, because I believe the testimony is incredibly powerful to inspire others to go do it.
Yeah. Wow. And I think in today's society, we kind of fall on one end of the spectrum. We're either on social media and we're sharing our entire lives, and oftentimes the best parts of our lives, right? The little, not white lies, but the not full truths, right? It's like, hey, here's my perfect self. Um, and then when it comes to Christ, we kind of tend to be a little bit more shy in sharing that. But like you said, it's about our hearts and it's about what we're doing it for. Are we doing it for the praise of man, or are we doing it to glorify God? And I think that's where United Hive comes in, is being able to see people's testimonies is shouldn't be discouraging, shouldn't keep you from wanting to share your faith and your testimony. It should encourage you. It should make you want to go out and share your faith with people. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes it's convicting for me, right? I think when I see people sharing their testimony, I ask myself the question, like, am I doing enough? Am I sharing God? Am I sharing my testimony and what he's done in my life? And it could be an accountability tool as well. Aside from being able to see what other people are doing, it can hold you accountable.
So true. I think, and what you just said was really interesting because I think there's another dynamic that I've witnessed and that I think is important we're also on guard for, which is we don't ever want to step into performance either, right? Where we feel like, you know, we're yes, the heart, yes, why are we doing these things? But the performance is that it can be easy in the world of evangelism to feel really close to God when you're doing a bunch of stuff. And when you're not, if you're not out there preaching, does God love you any less? And I think in the church, I think we all struggle with this to a certain degree, and it's something I think we each have to go to the Lord with and check our heart and ask him to show us as sons and daughters of the King. We're loved. And I believe it, the way I would put it though, is when we are operating in the fullness of how God created us, when you're stepping out, Chance, and you're using your giftings, how God has gifted you to touch lives around you, in whatever way that looks, it can all look different. I think that, there's great pleasure that the Lord is smiling upon his creation, who is stepping fully into their God-given identity and their calling as a son of God. It's just like when scripture talks about all creation groans for the sons and daughters to be revealed. And that there's an expectation, there's a yearning, there's a groaning, even in creation. But I think inside of us, man, we want to see, we want to be there. We want to grow. We want to mature. We want to be like free of fear of man. We want to be able to be bold. We want to be able to be courageous, and so, but stepping back from that, I just think I'm constantly asking the Lord to protect me from performance, because, there are days or weeks or whatever where I don't have as many encounters, and I'm like, I start to feel like, Lord, what's going on? Like, I want to talk to more people. I want to reach more people. And so I'm constantly having to check that with the Lord. And I'm always realizing too, that everything that happens out in the streets, if it doesn't come from like an overflow of my time with the Lord, it can feel very empty, even though God is still faithful. If I go out into the streets and I start preaching the gospel, people are going to experience God, like they're going to get touched. I think that's the faithfulness of God moving through us, even when we're not, like, it's like we need to stay connected to the vine. So what I want for myself is, as I'm growing in this and maturing, to stay connected to the vine, to let the overflow of my time with Jesus come out of me, that as I talk to people, as I engage with people, they're experiencing something, they're encountering his love. And in that encounter, I'm able to clearly present the good news of what Jesus did for them, what is available, the great invitation that is available for them to come and follow Jesus. So that's really what I'm, personally, I think, trying to do. So this app has been so interesting in this way because, and constantly stretching, brother, because I feel like I'm not an evangelist in the sense that you would think God would have chosen someone who was like this great evangelist to build this. But I feel so often very, I feel all the normal things I think that people feel. There's, I feel timid. I don't always want to talk to people. Sometimes I go out, like I'm not in a great mood or whatever. Like you don't always feel like doing this stuff. But God is so faithful. So he's been refining me and bringing me to a place where it truly is becoming, I think, who I am instead of like the stuff that I do. It's
Yeah.
like at a lot of churches, and I know you've come from the church background as well as a pastor and so forth. It's one thing, like you could plan an outreach, you could plan an event, and there might be a certain percentage of your church that shows up because they want to learn or they want to grow or it sounds fun or you're feeding people or whatever. They come for different reasons. But it's one thing to do outreach, and it's another thing to become that, to
Mm,
become the person that is a vessel for the Lord to use in their daily life. And I long for that. I'm not saying I've arrived by any means, but when I go to the grocery store or I'm getting gas or I'm on a vacation, I want to be a vessel for God to use me however he wants to use me in those moments, because everywhere we go, there are people that are hurting.
yeah. I love that terminology you used, a vessel. And I think going back to what you said about doing it from the overflow of your time with God, it's much easier to pour out water from a vessel that's full than a vessel that's empty. You're gonna have to work a
Wow.
lot harder. You're gonna have to pour the vessel a lot further than if it's overflowing. So I think you hit on a great point there that we need to be working from the overflow. And I think that's what makes the evangelism easier is how much time are you spending with the Lord? How much
Yeah.
time are you being filled up so that you can go out and pour out onto others? And I think this app is a great tool to be able to see the overflow, right? See the overflow of what people are doing and the
Mm.
connectedness. Like we're not alone in this. There is other people in our towns, in our cities, and across the world that are sharing their faith. And I think that could be a great encouragement to people. And it makes me want to go out and share my faith. And I'm excited that there's an app like United Hive to be able to witness those stories, but also be a part of that. And it kind of
Yeah.
makes me sad also because it's like, why do we have to have a separate app for this? Why can't we do that on traditional social media? Why can't we share our faith on Facebook and Instagram? And I think that those communities have become a place for just comparison and a place for just content that tends to bring us down. And you've
Mm.
been doing this for a while. So, what have been some challenges as people have come over to United Hive from these other social media platforms? Maybe expectations they have, or maybe hurts that they have that they've kind of carried over um, into United Hive, and how have you overcome those hurdles as you've worked on this app?
Yeah. Wow. Well, first, the expectation level is insane because nowadays, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all these other platforms, they have set the bar with their, $1 billion budget of
Yeah,
what's expected. And so nowadays with social media, and you guys know this from Act Social, there's certain things that are just common and are expected, but those features aren't necessarily easy to build or cheap to build. So at a baseline, it's not okay. It's not enough anymore just to build an app, and be like, oh, cool, because now there's more and more tools to build apps or build platforms. And, that process is getting easier and easier, but there's an expectation about the quality of it. So it has to be on like at par with these other platforms. And that is very expensive and very difficult to compete with. So, I think for us, we're trying to really carve out a certain niche. And we are like, we're not trying to be, um, I've said this from the very beginning. We're not trying to be kind of like the Christian Facebook. And many people said, hey, United Hive, like you guys should be like the Christian Facebook. And I get why they're saying it, because I do think there's a need for it, which is why I've been so excited about Act Social and what you guys are starting to build. I think it's very needed. And it's unfortunate though that people come over from other platforms and they are expecting, it's just ingrained, right? They're expecting a certain level. What we could have gotten away with 10 years ago maybe is, I just feel like there's very little tolerance. So if something doesn't work well, or something's not as fast or as easy, people are very quick to just be like, oh, okay, well, this is cool, but I'm just going to use Instagram, So I think we do battle that. And I also think, not necessarily your question per se, but I do think we really have to battle with the attention span of users. And we're really competing. I hate to put it this way, but there are so many different social apps. And so there is a certain amount where people are only going to use so many different social media platforms. So we are kind of, in that sense, we are competing against the TikToks and Snapchat and Facebook and Instagram and all these other platforms. And so I do think for a Christian platform, there are major advantages for being very clearly a Christian platform and community, and there's strength in that. But I also think we have very clear challenges for both United Hive, and I'm speaking, about Act Social and what you guys are trying to build, which is why I think it was just so cool. I wanted to really connect with you guys and love the heart and what you're aiming to build. So I think it's very important.
Absolutely. Those challenges that you mentioned, we've definitely experienced, right? Trying to get this off the ground. And I think it is met with a little bit of hesitancy, right? I think people are stuck in their ways of, well, I already have Instagram, I already have Facebook. Why do I need another social media app? And it's hard to see because a lot of these people who are on these apps are more anxious than ever. They're more depressed than ever, but they're also more addicted than ever. They're addicted to just that interaction they find. And I think we as humans, right? We crave interaction, we crave community, and we've substituted it for social media. We've substituted in-person community for social media, and it's shown us that it's not like the real thing. But we're so addicted to it that we keep going back for more. And I think that's why, especially for United Hive and Act Social, I really hope people give them a chance, right? Because they're gonna come and they're gonna see uplifting community and a place where you don't have to be depressed after scrolling through these things. You can see uplifting stories and testimonies and what God is doing in person around the world through United Hive. And that's powerful. And I hope that amongst revival in the church, we see a revival in social media, because our current system is broken, right? It's broken. It's causing us to be depressed and anxious. It's causing us to compare ourselves to other people, and I don't think that's how we're meant to live. And I think that if people begin to realize that and understand that and find those alternatives, I think that's going to be what changes the social media landscape for the good. What would you say has been the
So
hardest
good.
moment for you personally, Gabe, as you've stepped into this journey for many years now? What's been the hardest thing for you personally with creating this app?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest things is, when you launch something new, there is new attack, there's new tension, there's new trial. It's like, my whole life leading up to launching United Hive was, I feel like always that the Lord had given me so much favor. I had favor at work. I had favor with relationships. I feel like God, honestly, my whole life, I felt like this tangible presence of God and this favor of God. But then as soon as we launched United Hive, I felt that we were going in new territory, taking new ground, so to speak. And I felt like the attack of the enemy and my inner thought life was under massive, almost daily onslaught. And what I mean by that is when you build something, and you guys are doing it right now, so you know how this goes, but there's a certain element of you're putting yourself out there, you're having to really aggressively stand for something that inevitably might make people uncomfortable. It's confronting something in people. I'm realizing more and more, like what United Hive stands for, it confronts the complacency and lukewarm Christians. Well, guess what? There's a lot of those. And so they really don't resonate, or probably secretly don't like United Hive, or would not be openly supportive of it, or wouldn't want to get on there. If they're not stepping out, if they're not interested in sharing the gospel, or they're not doing that, they're going to be confronted by, I think, in a good way, but they would feel the tension in United Hive of that. And the same thing for Act Social, because, so this new ground and new mental attack, or feeling even like the aspect of rejection, where for example, even your friends and family might be like, what are you doing? Like, I don't know how much you've heard that, Chance, but you might have left a more safe or comfortable job, or you might have left a more comfortable path. I know for me, I did. I had a wonderful career at a very, large and successful money management firm. I had been there 13 years. And when I knew it was time to go full out and all in and leave my job, everyone looked at me like, are you crazy? I had kind of the dream job, the cush path that was set. And when you get rejected kind of over and over again, even your family may not understand, or they question you, or a lot of my closest friends, they don't use United Hive. That reality is a little hard to swallow. It's a little hard. Like, I'm like, really? You've got Candy Crush and you got 150 other terrible apps on your phone, but you won't even have United Hive on your phone. There's a spiritual aspect to that. And so I think for the 6 years, whatever we've been doing this, I think it's taken a cumulative effect on the mental psyche. And this is a daily journey I'm walking with the Lord, and I'm walking with it right now, but I try to be very just vulnerable and candid with anyone that asks, because this is a very real thing. If you're going to pioneer or step out and do anything that is meaningful in the kingdom, you will face rejection, you will face persecution, you will be misunderstood, you will be all sorts of things. And if hasn't happened yet, just wait till it grows. And, when Act Social blows up and gets super successful and, is wildly growing and successful, it will face new obstacles and new persecution. That's just the function, or people will be jealous of it, or people will attack it. And I think that the same goes with United Hive. So that's been the most difficult aspect of this, Chance, is still persevering in the face of the people that you thought would be most supportive aren't.
Yeah.
That's
And
difficult.
I think that's biblical, right? I go back to Jesus talking about preaching in his own hometown and how difficult that is, right? So it's no surprise that you're facing opposition from people that are close to you. I think that shows that you're on the right path. And I think that really spoke to me, because I think what we're trying to do here at Act Social, the attacks are coming, right? It's not easy, and the devil doesn't want to make it easy. He wants people to be tied up in, again, traditional social media to keep them just down. And when you're trying to go against that grain, not only are people against you, not only are other social media companies against you and don't want you to succeed, but I think there is that spiritual element of it too, that the enemy is really wanting you to fail. So for you to just continue this amidst that for the past 6+ years, I just want to commend you for that, because it's not easy. It's not easy to have people question what you're doing, or it's not easy to have friends and family who don't want to join the thing that you've built and that you're proud of, but you've stuck with it. And I think when we talked before, you're like, I'm going to just find any way to do this because God has asked me to do it. And you are full in on that. And I think God's going to reward that. And it might not be with followers, right? It might not be United Hive
Yeah.
blowing up. It might not be Act Social blowing up, but it might be one more person that we get to see in heaven for eternity because of the work that we're doing in these apps. And that's
Come on.
worth it. That's worth it. And I think in our humanly fleshly minds, that might not seem like it's worth it. But if one person is saved because of this, man, that's more than we can ever hope for, more than we can ever
Yeah.
ask for.
Come on, man. Well, I think you guys, you know, it's so important that we are introducing alternatives to the typical, to the culture. And I think that, man, because you hit on a couple things with, like, you go onto social media today, you go onto Instagram, and you somehow, when you leave Instagram, for example, you do, to me, I feel this. I don't know about you. I think, you said it, so I'm assuming you feel this, but I feel like really inadequate. Like, it's like it leaves you feeling like an utter failure. And yet, why do we keep coming back to it? And with Facebook and these platforms, and not to mention, I think for most, I don't know what your feeds and all that kind of stuff looks like, but I cannot go onto Facebook or Instagram without seeing something that is sexually, it's suggestive.
Absolutely.
It's content that is, again, it by the world standards, it wouldn't be seen as, like, it's not porn, but I don't want to see some girl in a bikini. I don't need to see that, but so this is the content that is getting jammed down our face, down our
Yeah.
throat. Like, it is being blasted at us constantly. And so, to me, I feel more and more just disgusted because I can't go, like, if I just wanted to go onto Facebook and, see some updates or see what maybe some friends are doing, it's like less and less of that. I'm seeing more. I'm just seeing ads, and I'm seeing weird little videos, but it's like reels or shorts or whatever they're doing now. And I understand, I mean, they have mastered the art of this kind of addictive, like, you want to keep coming back to see new, like, short videos and things. I understand the power of that, but the reality is so much of that content is so inappropriate and is actually ensnaring. It's not feeding our souls in a positive way. So I think what you guys stand for, again, United Hive, Act Social, these are alternative tools and platforms where I believe people would be really uplifted. If they go to Act Social, they're going to see positive content. If they go to United Hive, they're going to see stories of lives that have been touched, people stepping out, doing cool things for the kingdom of God and celebrating that together. So I think we live in a time where this battle, and it is a battle, and I think it's a war, if I can use such strong language, but it's a war for the attention span, and it's a battle that must be fought. And so you guys have said yes to that battle, and I've said yes to that battle, and I'm just convinced more than ever, like, can't give up, got to keep fighting, and got to keep building. And even if it doesn't look like success in the world's eyes, United Hive, because of, I mean, we're so niche and all that. So my success metrics are not comparing to Instagram and to Facebook. That can't be how we look at this and evaluate this. Otherwise, we will always feel like we are woefully underperforming. If it's just about users, if it's just about daily active users and some of these metrics. I know we got to look at this stuff because it's important to evaluate how and improve. It's important to improve, but we have to have a different posture, I believe, as Christian platforms. Did the Lord speak to Sean about Act Social? And did the Lord speak to you about joining the team? And did the Lord speak to me about building what we've built with United Hive? And if the answer is yes, that I will do it until he tells me to stop doing it. Period.
Mm, I love that. I love that. And for people listening, I think a challenge, try to step away from social media and try the alternative, right? A week, 10 days, 20 days, and see how different you feel by being fed encouraging, uplifting content. Go on to United Hive, go on to Act Social, try them out for 40 days and give up Instagram and Facebook. See how differently you feel and see if you are encouraged by the content that you're seeing through those places. Gabriel, man, I'm so grateful for just your insight, and I look up to you because you've been doing this for far longer than we have, and you're trucking along no matter what's thrown your way, and I've just really gained a lot of insight from you, and I'm excited for people to find out more about United Hive. If somebody wants to find out more, where do they find you? Can they download an app? Do they go to your website? What's the best way
Yeah.
to find United Hive?
Yeah. Well, so our website, unitedhive.com. But the easiest way, go to the App Store, go to Google Play, just search United Hive, and you'll be able to download the free app and get on there. It's super easy to set up an account. Get on there, be encouraged, start stepping out and sharing the gospel, share those stories. We have events, we have training content, we have a lot of new stuff coming into the app as well. And yeah, man, but Chance, it's been so good. It's when I got the email from you guys, and just since we've been able to connect, it's really really powerful, and I'll say this kind of as we wrap up, but you know, it's so important. I think Christian organizations need to work together because we are at a massive disadvantage a lot of times because of budget, because of team, because of expertise. And so I truly believe that Christian platforms need to find ways, and just Christian business leaders, there is no reason why in the Christian world we can't have the best apps. Like, there's no reason why we can't be leading and competing, but all of these secular platforms that have these billions of dollars, they are the ones that are shaping the mindset of the users, shaping culture, influencing, influencing culture and influencing the youth. And it is time, and I think that's what you guys represent to me, and we can put United Hive in that bucket as well, is it's time for the body of Christ to really take back ground, to push back, to fight back. But it does take money, it does take budget, it takes a strong team. And so I just believe more and more, like, this is God's doing this, I believe, for what's happening now, but also for what's to come. And so I'm deeply encouraged by the boldness of you and Sean and the team, everyone that stepped into Act Social, and yeah, looking forward, man, how we can partner, how we can work together, because yeah, it's like, hey, we don't need to see each other as competition.
Yep.
And that's the cool thing. In the kingdom, it shouldn't be like that. Unfortunately, it is often. It still feels like very competitive. But I think, and how can we bless one another? How can we help United Hive and Act Social both grow and achieve the fullness of what God has for each platform? Because they are distinct and they are unique, and both have their place and both are valuable. So anyway, thank you, man, for having me on, and just all the encouragement and support. It means a lot.
Absolutely. And I couldn't have said it better myself. I think we all don't have to compete against each other. We can all link arms for Christ and all succeed in just making him known across the nation. So thanks so much for your time today, Gabriel. And I hope people go out and check out United Hive, download it on the App Store, and also be on the lookout for your podcast coming up too. So
Come
thanks
on.
so much, man. And look forward to just seeing how we can work together in the future.
Awesome. Thanks, Chance.
Yeah. See you next time.
Bye-bye.